pretty brutal hit from John Bostic. Now, none of the Cowboys came rushing to Dalton's defense afterwards, and that surprised head coach Mike McCarthy after the game. Take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, a hit that caused a disqualification. But yeah, well, I mean, we speak all the time about playing for one another, protecting one another. So yeah, definitely it was probably not the response that you would expect.
So Mike McCarthy calling out his players at the post-game press conference. Brandon, let me start with you. What was your reaction to what the head coach had to say?
Not a big deal, Jenna, and I don't think he called out his players. I'm sorry to say it, but, as a player, you understand what happens when you stand on that podium in front of those cameras. You're going to be asked a question. He was asked a question. Do you think your players should have rallied for your quarterback? And he answered. And then they did a follow-up question. He said, you know what? I said what I said, and he moved on. If he would have stepped up to that podium in his opening and said, look, same old story about the Dallas Cowboys. Turnovers. We can't just get the simple assignments down, covered like quarters. We keep giving up big play after big play. And also, our team is soft. We're not tough. We don't stand up for one another. If he said that, then we can have a discussion. But he answered the question. Now, if he did do that, right, as a player, I would have went back and I would have watched the whole thing, and I wanted to see his body language. I wanted to see how he said things, the way he said it, the timing of it. But he didn't do that, so it's not a big deal for me.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree there, Brandon. It certainly wasn't nothing. He didn't say, like I said, we made the right play. There's no room for any of that. It was a disqualification. It is what it is. We're moving on. He said something else, and I couldn't figure out what he said. Was he calling them cowards? Is he saying they're apathetic? Or is he saying that they should have gotten into a time machine and protected Andy Dalton in the previous play? Because there were 6 Cowboys around, and they were largely like looking, being concerned for Andy Dalton. And my read on it was, I guess, Mike McCarthy wanted someone to get into Bostic's face to prove their worth as teammates. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. Yeah. Especially after he scolded the Cowboys for not keeping things in-house and acting as men. And then he's going to say this statement. Brandon, I had a totally different read on it than you did.
Well, Nick, I don't know your thoughts here, but for me, he's answering a question. So when Jay Cutler threw 4 picks and they asked me, Brandon, did Jay Cutler play bad? What am I supposed to say here, right? Like, I got to answer that question. So there's so many ways you can go about it, and that's what I'm saying. And when you stand on that podium in front of those cameras, you're asked the tough questions. He answered the question. That's all he did. Because as a player, what I'm going to do is if I turn on First Things First and I see you, Nick, talking about, whoa, this is blasphemy. Kevin, if you say blasphemy, why would Coach say this? I'm actually going to go on the internet, watch his entire press conference before I react. And if I watch his entire press conference, see the question, hear the question, see his response, I'm saying, no, this is no news. He was asked a tough question.
Let me ask you, before I give my take, let me just ask you a quick question, Brandon. Forget what McCarthy said. As a player, especially when the game's already out of hand anyway, if one of your guys gets cheap-shotted and knocked out of the game, even if it's by a guy, I don't think John Bostic's got a bad reputation at all. I don't think he's a dirty player. I don't think anyone thinks he's a dirty player. It's just a bad play. But in the moment, are you as a player expected to, at the very least, get in his face, if not take him to the ground? What is expected of the Cowboys teammates in that moment? Tell me that, then I'll give my take on it.
Well, first of all, we got to remember that it's Andy Dalton and not Dak Prescott. If that's Dak Prescott, things probably would be different. But I think now, today, it's tough because it's a moving target. Guys don't know, like, he's a moving target. Did he drop his shoulder? Did he hit him? Did he lead with his helmet? I think guys are in funny positions right now. So I can see why the guys didn't react the way they did. But if it's Dak Prescott, I think guys don't care if it's a clean play, a cheap play. they're going to respond. But this is Andy Dalton. Guys don't have that type of relationship with the backup quarterback. So there's so many things and so many different factors here. So I don't want to just judge the Cowboys players and say that they're soft. They didn't respond accordingly, because the truth of the matter is so many more things that play into this.
Well, and there were so many more things that played into the game. And I think this is, honestly, the least of the Cowboys' worries. You had Cowboys players this week say the coaching staff doesn't know what they're doing. And defensive players ostensibly saying the coaching staff doesn't know what they're doing. And then I saw two of the most embarrassing touchdowns that have been given up in this season all year. Brandon, I don't know what coverage this is, except it shouldn't exist. The hell are you doing? Like, you just let the dude run right past you. There's no safety there.
Nick,
that's got to be man-to-man. He just lets him run. What?
Nick, you absolutely know what coverages it is, because I've been talking about it for, what, 6 weeks now?
Quarter, half.
It's and that turns into man-to-man.
Well, that's not coaching. That's not bad coaching. That's bad technique. That's bad playing. Just like the next touchdown. Logan Thomas. Jalen Smith is one of the highest paid inside linebackers in the league. Logan Thomas is not one of the highest paid tight ends in the league. You've got him, tackle him. That's not coaching. That's bad football. So, like, that's terrible. And so the Cowboys, the Cowboys have now, is McCarthy calling out the players calling out the coaches. Everyone, who everyone needs to be calling out? The person they're staring out in the mirror. Because the Cowboys are awful. They're awful.
That's right.
Whether Dalton got knocked out yesterday or not, they have systemic issues that all of a sudden it looks like, hey, you know who might win the NFC East? Washington. Can you imagine saying that 6 weeks ago, Jenna?
I was going to say it's literally anyone's division to win at this point. And we're going to talk much more about the Cowboys coming up. I want to shift gears, though, and talk some New England Patriots now. It was another brutal day for the New England offense taking on the Raiders. They couldn't get anything going whatsoever. I mean, the Niners, rather. It was so bad, Cam Newton, who had a miserable day, was actually benched in the third quarter once things got out of hand. Cam completed only 9 passes for 98 yards through 3 picks. Jarrett Stidham came on in relief, but it was over by that point. Former Patriot, current Niner, Jimmy G, blowing out the Patriots at Foxborough. Here's Cam after the game.
I can't speak for everybody. I just stick to the man in the mirror, and I wasn't good enough. I didn't